It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we're talking Glenn's performance as an imprisoned woman in World War II in the historical drama Paradise Road.
Eight-time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today, I am so excited to talk to again. You have heard her on And the Runner-Up Is, discussing the 2007 Best Actress race with me, as well as an episode of my Patreon bonus series, A Woman Robbed, talking Natalie Portman and Marianne Jean-Baptiste, which was super fun. Welcome to the show, Steffi Acain.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks so much for inviting me onto your Glenn Close podcast. I'm so excited that you're doing this and doing this deep dive on her. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so happy for you to be here. And I also know that you are a big fan of Cate Blanchett. So
Yes.
We'll certainly have a lot to talk about there. This being her basically film debut, more or less. So,
Yeah.
But before we talk Glenn and all the other fabulous ladies here in Paradise Road, tell me your relationship with Glenn Close overall, and if you remember when you first saw her, what you like about her, and if you have a favorite performance of hers.
Okay, so I've listened to your previous episodes, and I feel like I'm definitely not unique in saying that, like, my first real encounter with Glenn was 101 Dalmatians. Because I remember I owned the VHS tape, and I actually have the VHS tape in my room. And that VHS tape was normally like near the top of my pile. And so I saw it pretty frequently. And she like kind of scared me in that movie. And she already looks so like scary on the cover. So I was a little like scared of Glenn growing up. But then when I was like around early middle school age, I think I became like more aware of who she was during the Stepford Wives, because that movie always played on TV, like on like TBS, TNT, USA. And I love Nicole. I know you mentioned Cate, but I'm also like a huge Nicole fan. So yeah, I loved her in that movie. And my friend and I, we thought Glenn Close was really, really funny in the Stepford Wives. And we used to quote that movie all the time. There's that bit she does with like the washing machine that we thought was just so funny. But yeah, like then over the years, becoming a bit more like intentional with following actresses, you obviously like, you have to respect Glenn Close because she's just been doing it for so long, and she's like endured like so many like highs and lows with her career, and the fact that she's been able to like maintain a career for this long is just like so admirable. And she's just like one of those people, especially I think like the longer she goes, she's just like so committed. She's never anyone that's just like passive in her career. Like you can tell even in projects where it's like a bit questionable, like why are you in this? Because this is like so beneath you, like all's fair. She's still like giving everything. So that's what I really enjoy about Glenn as an actress. And I think also we're recording this like days after that Hunger Games teaser trailer came out. She is one of those people, which is really like refreshing even in like the later stages of her career, where there's this element of like, what is she going to do next? Which I don't think like many actresses at that stage of their career have. There's always this element of like, what is Glenn Close going to look like in this next movie? What like, how big is she going to go? And I just think like that she's just so fun to follow. So you have a really fun journey to keep
Yeah.
going on the longer this podcast keeps going.
Yes. You mentioned highs and lows, and we're definitely going to experience some lows as we get into the 2000s, perhaps, with some nice highs in there, like the Stepford Wives, despite the quality of that movie not being necessarily not all that great. But what she brings to that is just camp excellence. And that seems to be what she's doing in this new Hunger Games movie, too. So I am just really looking forward to seeing her in that mode, and she is just having such a good time. And to your point, so few actresses of her age range are getting these kinds of opportunities, and I don't want to keep comparing her to Meryl, which a lot of people do and have done since like the 80s. But you look at what Glenn is doing now, and it's just like, it seems like even more interesting work than even Meryl is getting right now, or even what Meryl is interested in doing. And so I just find that really fascinating, how she's kind of taken over that role a little bit in a way in the 2020s, at least, I guess, as Meryl has taken a little bit of break. So I don't know. I'm very excited to see whatever wild, crazy projects she signs on to next.
Yeah, she's like a risk taker. Even
Right.
at a stage in her career where you're like, it would kind of be easy and like understandable for them to kind of like coast. But she's not coasting. If anything, I feel like she's just like making even wilder choices.
Yeah. Like I said, she's just having fun. Yeah,
I know.
She doesn't have anything to prove. She's just following
if
her.
If Glenn's having fun,
passion.
We're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, though, we're talking about a movie today where she is probably not having as much fun.
Yeah.
You know? But we'll certainly have plenty to talk about here. So with Paradise Road, this is her first movie of 1997 that we're getting into here. This was quite a big production that was mounted here, and it's partially based on a true story about women living in Singapore who were captured by Japanese forces during World War II and imprisoned in Sumatra for 3 years, where they endured harsh conditions. But they also grew closer through their experience and formed what they call a vocal orchestra. So Martin Meter and David Giles met with survivors of the camp, and they wrote a screenplay. They and the producer Graham Radigan got Bruce Beresford involved. Bruce Beresford, the director of Driving Miss Daisy and Tender Mercies. Ultimately, they secured this all-star cast to help finance the project, namely Glenn and Frances McDormand. We also had Pauline Collins, Juliana Margulies, Jennifer Ely, all of them having recent successes, as well as a young Australian actress by the name of Cate Blanchett, who is filming her first major film role here. So Paradise Road follows this group of women who had assembled for a military dance at the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. We have Adrienne Pargeter, played by Glenn, the English wife of a tea planter. She is based on the real-life woman Nora Chambers. Susan McCarthy, played by Cate Blanchett, is an Australian nurse. Rosemary, played by Jennifer Ely, is a British model. So anyway, everyone's having a good time until the Japanese forces set off a bomb outside the club and they're forced to flee. And so the women and children are going on a boat to safety, but that boat is also attacked, forcing the women to flee further. So Adrienne, Susan, and Rosemary get separated, but ultimately swim their way to shore in Sumatra, only to be taken by the Japanese and reunited with the other women at this internment camp, where they are subjected to really brutal conditions. Other characters include Margaret Drummond, played by Pauline Collins, who is a missionary based on the real-life Margaret Dryburgh. Topsy, played by Juliana Margulies, is an American socialite. So, yeah, the women, they try to survive the camp, but as times continue to get tough, Adrienne and Margaret decide to start up a vocal orchestra to raise morale, and it proves to be quite a success, with even some of the guards enjoying their performances. But conditions only get more brutal from there as the years go on until the end of the war in 1945. So, yes, let's just dive right in here, Steffi. Would love to know your thoughts on Paradise Road and this amazing cast of women, and your thoughts on Glenn's performance.
Okay, so I remember the first time. I'm actually like strangely fond of this movie because this was the first movie that I ever watched when I decided to do like these actress deep dives. Because like for anyone who, I'm not going to assume that you guys like listeners are following me online, but like about 2 years ago, I started to, like Kevin, choose an actress and just deep dive their entire career. And the first actress I ever did was Cate Blanchett. And like you mentioned, this was her like major feature film debut. So this was the very first movie that I watched ever in like doing like these actress deep dives. So at the time, I remember prior to watching the movie, I actually watched the trailer, which I try not to do anymore, but I watched the trailer before watching this movie. And in the trailer, they make it like seem, I mean, it is, but the trailer like really builds for this movie to be like about like the singing, like through the power of song, the women survive. So I knew it wasn't going to be a movie musical, but at the same time, I was like expecting more music. And so it wasn't really until about like 45-ish minutes in until Glenn Close starts humming. And I was like, oh, finally. Because like the entire time I'm like, where is this singing? So yeah, that was like an interesting experience. And then when the movie was done, I was like, well, that happened. And then I revisited the movie and I'm still like, well, that happened. I think like overall though, I don't think this is like a terrible movie, but it's not a particularly like memorable movie. It's just sort of like a movie that's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it.
But any thoughts on Glenn before I get into my thoughts?
Of course. On Glenn.
Yeah.
Well, see, here's the thing too about this movie is like this really is like an ensemble of like actresses. I mean, obviously we have Glenn Close, that's why we're here. But then you have like young Cate Blanchett, baby Cate, you have Frances McDormand, like fresh off of winning her Oscar, and then you have like Juliana Margulies, who's on like the biggest TV show at this time, ER, and then you have Jennifer Ely, Pauline Collins. So it's interesting to see these women together, but if you were to choose a lead, it's definitely Glenn. And I think her performance is like, it's fine, but it's not a performance that I would like rush to watch if I'm in the mood to watch a Glenn Close performance. Like I feel like she's like a bit composed in comparison to her other roles, but that's also kind of like what the performance calls for. And it's like resilience. Sure. Like that's what this like her character in this role is. It's like a story of resilience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said there. This was a bit of a struggle, to be honest. I actually hadn't seen this movie before this, despite the star power here and the fact that it stars Glenn and everything. I don't know. I hadn't really prioritized it, maybe because nobody talks about it. It rarely gets brought up in retrospectives on any of the actresses in this film, other than, I guess, it being Cate Blanchett's first big role, I guess. But it really has slipped under the radar. It feels a little bit like a This Had Oscar Buzz movie, where it's like a bunch of these high pedigree actresses tackling this story set in World War II from the director of a Best Picture winner, you know, and telling a fresh story within that setting, sort of. Like, it seems to tick a lot of boxes. And then when you watch the film, you kind of understand why it didn't really connect ultimately. Like, despite the best intentions of those involved, like, I think it's an okay movie ultimately, and I do think it gets better as it goes along. But I think the main problem is that there isn't really like a central force that is propelling the story forward. It feels like Glenn's character is kind of the lead, but it is, like you said, still an ensemble film, so it's not really her story per se. It's sort of like weaving in so many different perspectives and backgrounds, but I also don't find myself particularly drawn in by any of them, and so I also don't think it's really as like raw and sort of grimy as it should be, perhaps. Like, there's that studio gloss feeling to it that I really felt that really distances me from it. And so, Yeah, I did ultimately find it rather dull on the whole, which
Yeah.
is sad to say, but because it's such a fascinating story on paper, but there just isn't like a strong enough perspective or like a hook that keeps it going for me. I don't know if you agree with that, but I just like I was trying to latch on to all these different characters, but I felt like they didn't really commit to one over the other in a way that made me really care as much as I needed to.
Yeah, no, totally. I would agree. I think like because I watched the trailer prior, I think I was kind of led to believe that the hook would be the choir or the
Right.
vocal orchestra, excuse me, Glenn. She makes it a clear
Yes.
point. It's a vocal
There's a
orchestra and
difference.
not a choir. But
Yes.
because it takes so long for them to even introduce that, you're kind of just like waiting for something to happen. And then it's just kind of like they plod through. It's just and what's so strange too is like the portrayal of like the passage of time. Because like the movie
Yeah.
ends when the war ends, but while you're watching the movie, you're not even quite sure how much time is passing until there's like very clunky dialogue from a character being like, it's been 3 months since we've been here, and you're like, wait, what? Like I didn't even,
Right.
I had no idea.
I know. Yeah. There's even like years pass in this movie.
Yes.
And yet it seems like they've been here for like maybe a month or two, just based on like how it feels.
Yeah, it's very
So, yeah,
strange.
very strange. Like usually even in stories like this that feel a bit okay and sort of dull, you can still latch onto a performance or two that is kind of helping make up for the lack of the depth in the script perhaps. But even on that front, I don't know if there's any real standout performances other than maybe Cate, just because she is like exploding onto the scene here with this great screen presence.
Right.
Even Glenn, I don't think is particularly compelling here, which saddens me to say, obviously. Like, she does get some good material, I think, in like the second half once she starts up this orchestra and is getting in trouble with the guards. But even her character doesn't even feel all that developed to me, despite her being the de facto lead. And
Yeah.
I think there's like an attempt to make her a bit of like a stiff upper lip, inspiring leader of this group, like a Greer Garson kind of thing. But I don't know that this role necessarily allows her to fully explore what Glenn is best at, for as good
Yeah.
as she is. This is just not, I don't think she's miscast necessarily, but it's just not really the kind of role that her strengths really lend themselves to.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if you want to see Glenn, like a Glenn Close movie, this isn't the movie you would rush
No.
to see. You're kind of like, oh, like you have to be like die hard. We're going through the filmography to even know that this movie exists, like you and I.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
so
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's a deep
Yeah.
cut.
And it's a deep cut for sure. And as a story, like I said, it just kind of feels like it's just sort of like events are happening that we have to kind of get to all the plot points of what these women went through rather than really focus on one character in particular. And I just personally struggle with films like that. Even the critically acclaimed ones like Dunkirk, for example, like I just struggle with that kind of thing personally. Like I think it's very handsomely mounted. It is like you could see the production value here, and there is some camaraderie between the women that feels authentic. And, obviously none of these flaws, I think, are denigrating what the real life women went through. It's just as an adaptation of their story, it kind of just feels like the Hollywood sanitized version of their story rather than actually really digging into the dirt, so to speak, of like what they really went through.
Yeah, they feel like the characters don't really feel like too distinct. Like you kind of can tell they're trying to fit these like very like specific archetypes, but they're like generic in trying to fit those archetypes. So yeah. But Glenn is like, like kind of what we said earlier. She is like the lead, and she is this person who is one of the main people to like really push for the vocal orchestra. And that's kind of like when it starts getting like slightly exciting, because it's like, oh, now like these characters are like active because I don't know if it's like maybe like the nature of the roles that these characters are just not able to be active because they're prisoners of war. So like what can they do? But yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a weird movie that you're kind of just like waiting for it to end. And you know it's going to end probably either if some like when someone dies or when the war is over. And then like when the war is over, the movie ends. So
yep.
You're like, okay.
Well, that's actually part of it, is that like I feel like there are so many fascinating angles for this. Like the fact that they can't really escape this internment camp that they're set in, because it's an island and like it's all controlled by the Japanese, so like there's nowhere really to go. Like you're going to get caught no matter what. I feel like there's some interesting sort of psychological stuff you could get into there, of being like, we are truly trapped here and there is no hope of us actually escaping until like we just have to wait it out until the war ends. Like I feel like there's something there that they could have explored further, but I don't think they even really get into that. So
yeah. And then there's also like there are moments where a certain character might have an interesting plot point, like when Juliana Margulies' character, there's a point when all like several of the women are kind of like selected to go to potentially work as like prostitutes in the gentleman's club. And there's this like odd moment where Juliana Margulies' character is like, maybe I will work as one of like, you know, the prostitutes, because like I want to be more comfortable with my lifestyle because it's like really hard out here. And then Glenn is like, no, don't do it. And then like you don't even know what decision Julianne Margulies makes because like the scene ends. And then like 2 scenes later, like I thought, even in rewatching, I was like, oh wait, I think like what happens? And then like 2 scenes later, she's like back in the camps with them, and you're like, wait, what? Like it's so strange. And then it isn't until like about like an hour and a half later when they're like driving away to the next location, and then they see some of the women that chose to be like prostitutes working at the gentleman's club, when Juliana Margulies' character has this clunky line and she's like, oh, like I should have gone with them. It's like, wow. What? It's bizarre.
Yeah. Again, there's so many different stories here that Bruce Beresford is kind of sort of juggle all of them, and it feels like it's just letting down so many of the actresses ultimately. Like I don't like, do we want to talk a little bit about Frances McDormand too and her German accent, because that was something that a lot of critics at the time really struggled with was her performance, especially in the wake of her winning an Oscar, just to like kind of see her here trying to pull off a German accent, not fully really getting there, seems slightly like out of her particular skill set as well, perhaps. Like she doesn't usually do that kind of thing.
Right. She is like one of the few actresses that aren't playing their own nationality. It's like her and Glenn, it's like her and Glenn are not
Glenn playing British.
Exactly. So it is like a bit strange, and I don't know, but she kind of just like comes in and out of the movie. She's not really even like in those scenes where the women are suffering. She's just like kind of on the side because she's a doctor, and it's like, oh, plot twist at the very end. She's, what is she, like a doctor of philosophy or something like that?
But her husband is like a
doctor. Yeah.
Right.
So, it's again, it's like one of those, like, I'm sure a diehard Frances McDormand fan knows of this movie, but they're not rushing to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Except us.
Except us. I will say, I do think her and Cate Blanchett have quite a bit of chemistry. I don't know if you picked up on that as well, but watching the scenes between them, I'm like, there's something going on here. Like, there's a little bit of a spark, you know?
Yeah, it's sweet, like the mentor-mentee kind of thing. Especially, like, because, like, now when we think about Cate, she's just so, like, formidable to kind of see her in this, like, innocent,
ingenue.
Like,
like
I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, Cate wouldn't like me. Like, Cate now would never, but it's just, you know, it's cute. It's a cute moment for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like their chemistry together.
Even just watching the two of them on screen, it's just like at this point in time, Frances McDormand has one Oscar. And then like all these years later in 2025, between the two of them, they have 6 Oscars collectively. It's just kind of
Yeah.
remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like prestige with this movie in hindsight
Yeah.
that we're
Exactly.
now seeing. Yeah.
Right. Well, just to go through a little bit of the plot somewhat chronologically, before we get to the camp, I do want to talk about this whole first section here and
Sure.
the scene in Singapore where they're at this dance and getting to the evacuation, and the women kind of being in these close quarters, all cooped up in their boat that they're escaping on. Like, I think there could have been a fascinating story in and of itself, just kind of watching those women bouncing off each other and like talking about their different perspectives. Just like, again, being in those like cramped quarters. Like, there's a lot of points of drama I think you could get to as they're all introducing themselves to each other and like the different class systems there and everything that I think, again, like there could have been more explored here if it was actually interested in doing so, but I think they're very much they're in a hurry to get to that internment camp. But for me, I was just watching it being like, this could be a fascinating like little dramatic 1-act play, just like watching these women, going at it in this boat personally.
Yeah, because it's like they're all from different walks of life, but the dramatic tension is like now they're forced to be together in this one place, and it's survival.
Right.
The beginning of like their survival journey. So yeah, that's the thing with this movie. It's like you see like little sparks of potential, but then ultimately like it just sums up to nothing. It just goes nowhere.
Right. Exactly. Like, again, we're just sort of waiting it out, which is not the most dramatic something for drama. But I also think like in certain scenes, like the score here is so overblown and just so incredibly dated to the 90s that it makes it feel kind of cheap for me. Like, again, like the boats are being bombed after that scene by the Japanese and they're forced to jump overboard, and just they have this like generic triumphant music almost as the women are going overboard, which is just like it just really takes me out of it, and it just makes it feel like that classic 90s almost Miramax prestige feel to it, that I'm just like, this is a horrific event, and yet why am I hearing this rousing score? I don't know. These moments take me out.
Yeah, it's like one of those scores where it's like it tries to tell you how to feel. Like, this is what you should be feeling, because it's like so dramatic. There's also that moment towards the end too with like Jennifer Ely where she's looking at her husband who she's been separated from for like this entire time, and he's like pretty like battered and bruised and bloody, and she's looking at him like it's like actually like quite emotional. And then all of a sudden like the score just like comes in and it's like, and you're like, whoa. Okay, well, there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the teeth to really make the audience feel the suffering for me. Like it feels like that score just kind of tries to make the audience feel more comfortable than we should be feeling, I guess, if that makes sense. If we want to like give us the perspective of these women, this is not the kind of emotional feeling that these women would be feeling in this moment. Like, it just feels off to me in certain moments. But I'm interested in like the whole sequence where Glenn and Jennifer Ely and Cate Blanchett are separated from the other women. First of all, I feel like I missed the point of where and why they were separated from the others. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but it's just a little unclear exactly how that happened.
Yeah, I don't know either, because it's not like they were the last to jump off the boat. So they kind of like, it's just like an awkward like where you just see the sea. I'm pretty sure you just like you see the sea, and then all of a sudden like Glenn kind of like swims into frame, and then like Cate kind of follows, and then like Jennifer, and then they're kind of just like bobbing along, and you see like it becomes night, and then there's like the moon in the distance, and And they're still bobbing along until they like make it to shore.
Yeah. But like, I would also be interested in a movie where it's just like these three women who were separated and they have to like find their way to
That should have been
safety
the whole movie.
somehow. Yeah.
That would have been
I'd be
very
interested in that.
interesting. The
Yeah.
whole movie is just them bobbing in the water, getting to know each
Sure.
other.
Yeah, just a pure, again, survival kind of movie. Just the three of them, rather than like
Yeah.
24 characters that we're having to keep track of.
Right.
But yes, they're of course picked up by some men and they kind of squabble with one of them who claims that they were like well within their right to bomb this ship, to which Glenn rightfully protests that it was just women and children. I do like her, again, like that fierceness that she brings in scenes like that you can definitely see that classic Glenn sort of like standing up to men kind of energy, which she kind of carries through in certain scenes that I always enjoy seeing, even if they're very few and far between. So we get little glimpses of the Glenn we like, but...
Right. But only so much.
Yes. And I think by this point in the film, when we're in the camp, though, it just feels like there isn't a clear through line, like main character perspective. Like it is very much an ensemble, like we've said, but there's such a lack of driving force as we even get to that part. Like there's not a concrete narrative arc that I feel like I'm kind of like, again, like searching for something to latch onto as I'm watching it. Like there are some intermittent sort of compelling segments. Like there's a moment where Pauline Chan, her character, sneaks out for like supplies, I think, and then is sneaking back and they nearly catch her. And then the following day they douse her in gasoline and set her on fire in front of all the other women, which is like really brutal. Almost too brutal, I would say. But it's sort of like they're teaching the women a lesson to kind of not fall out of line or disobey them in any way, and sort of making an example out of her. And you can see how the other characters are really shaken to the core by this, and that it has struck some fear into them. So like, even if it is a little brutal compared to everything else, like there are those moments that really sort of make you feel what these characters are feeling.
Right. Like a lot of the movie too, especially when they're in the camps, it's kind of like broken apart by like there'll be a sequence and then someone gets tortured.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my God, I'm scared. And then like some time will pass and then someone else gets tortured. And then I get, oh my God, I'm scared. And like, you know, like it kind of just follows that repetitive sequence until you get to the end. And they each kind of, well, like not every single person, but it's like Glenn and Cate also kind of have their moment in the sun to, you know, get tortured. Yeah. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. It's kind of tough to talk about this movie because you're kind of like grasping for something to talk about.
That's the thing, because it is so dull in so many parts of it, and then it's broken up by those brutal sequences of these women being tortured.
Did you ever watch some interviews that Glenn did for this movie? I watched two, and it seems like this was difficult for her to make this movie. Like I would imagine she was like, I think it was oh my gosh, it's that lady. I forget her name.
I know who
like
you're
from
talking
Texas,
about.
I think.
Bobby something. Yeah.
Yes, Bobby Wynette or something.
Bobby Weigart?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was asking Glenn, like, so how was it working on this movie? And I think they shot this in Malaysia and then also Australia. But it just seems like Glenn's vibe when talking about the movie was like, it was hard. Because it's like, you know, the weather. And I feel like these women are like outside in the sun. They're shooting just like torture after torture after torture. They're like battered and bruised and bloody. Like this isn't like a glamorous, fun movie. It's a hard shoot. I wonder, do you think Glenn remembers that she made this movie?
Probably to some degree. Like there is, well, I mean, actually to your point about watching some of her interviews, she mentioned how like, you know, these women, what we experienced together, I feel like we're going to carry this with us for the rest of our lives.
Like a positive spin.
Yes, essentially. Like we've all kind of trauma bonded almost through this movie. And then I feel like in the years since, she's never mentioned it again. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It sort of feels like it's one of those things where like you go to summer camp with this group of people and then like you're like, oh my God, we're going to carry these relationships with us forever. And then by the time next year, it's like, well, we kind of lost touch.
Yeah, like that happened. I will say, in the context of Cate, I remember
Yeah.
there was this Instagram live that her and Sarah Paulson had done over the pandemic. And one of the questions that a fan had asked was, do you remember what first project you saw of each other's? And Sarah Paulson had mentioned this movie.
Wow.
And Cate Blanchett's response was like, oh, no. And then Sarah Paulson was like, yeah, you were in the ground. And you were like, ah. And Cate was like, yeah, that was that movie. So I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like she's had quite an experience there that she may not look back on very fondly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there are small moments of grace and sort of like transcendence, especially when in regard to music or art in any way. I did, before we get into that orchestra part of it, I did want to just read this lovely little poem that Pauline Collins says in the film that gives the film its title, Paradise Road. It's a brief sort of nice moment after they are sort of burying the character that Pauline Chan plays. So to read the poem, she says, "The brilliant sunshine filters through the trees. The leaves are rustled by a gentle breeze. A wild and open space, by shrubs pink-tipped, mauve-blossomed is o'ergrown. A hush enfolds me, deep as I've known, unbroken, save by distant insects' drone. A jungle clearing, a track through which we bear our load to him. It is our paradise road. How silent is this place? How sacred is this place?" So let's sit with that for a moment.
That was quite the emotional read.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
didn't quite do it quite as well as Pauline Collins, but also rest in peace, Pauline Collins, who unfortunately left us recently. She's lovely in this movie, I think, too. But
I know she brings a lot of like warmth to the movie,
yeah,
which is really,
And
and
I
I think
think
she has really good chemistry with Glenn.
yeah, I think so too. They kind of bond over where Pauline Collins is sort of singing absentmindedly to herself, and Glenn is sort of taken in by that. And they talk about how Glenn studied music at the academy, playing the violin, and they're like humming together. Like that's a really sweet moment and a nice little reprieve from those harsh conditions. I mean, to speak to again, like those little moments, I feel like the film is trying to get to, like through that poem that I just read, what Pauline Collins reads, like these moments of grace within the harshness. I see what Bruce Beresford is trying to go for here. I just feel like even those moments don't quite land with the impact that they're hoping to.
Yeah, I would agree because it's just so unfocused. Like you
Yeah.
have that beautiful poem moment, and then I don't even know what they cut to next, but it's like, well, that happened.
We barely even linger on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, it's rough. But it leads to the two of them forming an orchestra together and pitching this idea to the other women. And I think the women are kind of like okay with it at first, like it's something to do. There's this funny little exchange where one of the other women says, "What are we going to sing? I love Rudy Valley." And Glenn immediately is like, "It won't be Rudy Valley." It just kind of gives her this sort of sympathetic, sort of condescending look, which is a little funny. I always love seeing Glenn in those little slightly passive aggressive moments.
like putting
they're not
people
going
in
to
their
be
place.
exactly like they're not going to be singing any pop songs. It's all going to be classical. And I love watching her kind of like patiently teaching the women the scales, but of course, interrupted by the guards coming in and causing a ruckus, which I do think, to be slightly more positive, I think Bruce Beresford does an effective job of. It feels like we're finally getting some momentum, even with the harshness in the background coming in and trying to stop them, I guess. Like, it feels like there's finally some sort of contrast here that we are approaching in an effective way.
Yeah, because it kind of like it finally gives the women something to do, and it gives us something to watch by extension. Like the formation of this vocal orchestra, and like it's fun watching Glenn try to like rally people in to join the vocal orchestra, because she does kind of have to convince and coax people into joining, because it could be potentially dangerous, because there's so many rules. Like I think it was like the children aren't even allowed to like have lessons, you know. They can't even write. There's a scene, I think, where like Pauline Collins is like trying to like write, you know, the music, and then they're like, oh my God, you can't be doing that. Like, what's gonna happen? We're all gonna get in trouble if someone catches you. So there is some like tension and like emotional stake, because we've seen so many like torture scenes where you're like, God, please no, we don't want to watch any of you get get tortured anymore. But yeah, I think that's when the movie does start picking up a little bit. That. And I will say too, like when they do get to that first vocal orchestra performance, like at least the movie does give that time. Like that's like a good 4 to 5 minute performance straight through. So there's that. And everyone is like moved. It's a nice moment. Even the guards.
Which, you know, you could say it's a little cheesy, but it's a nice moment of reprieve.
But we'll take anything we can get at
We'll
this
take
point.
anything. Yes. Yeah. I do want to say really quickly, though, a very funny moment in retrospect watching this movie now is when one of the other characters talks about how, like, it's a foolish endeavor that they're doing this. And then they ask, how many women conductors are there? And then Glenn is like, none that I know of. While Cate Blanchett is sitting right there. Lydia Tarr is sitting right there.
I know. Maybe like Cate like watched Paradise Road again in preparation for Tar and was like, let me study my good old buddy Glenn and see how she like passionately guided us through our first vocal orchestra performance in this movie. Because Glenn is like, she is very into it when she is conducting. Again, committed. A committed actress.
Yes. I mean, she said in one of those interviews that was no joke. Like, learning all of that conducting, everything to do there. Like, she knows music, but she felt like this was a very different skill set having to conduct. So this just once again brings me to the idea that if Tar was in the 90s, Glenn would have played Lydia Tarr.
Oh my God, that would have been so good. I could totally see. You're very right.
Yeah.
You're very right.
I wish we could have gotten that so badly.
I know, if only. If only. Yeah, totally. Because she's so formidable, Glenn. And she's like good at playing, you know, these like villain baddie roles. And that would have been like such a delicious role for her. And you know she would like eat that up.
Yes,
she would love it.
And she would look great in a suit. That too. That helps. So
do you notice like as the movie goes on to like once she like starts conducting, she's like wearing pants.
Yeah. And they cut her hair at one point. Yeah. Becoming much more assertive too with the guards and everything.
Right.
So, but I mean, we talked earlier too about the other sort of main point of interest here, which is the point where these Japanese enforcers are introducing the idea of the women serving as sex workers for some male clientele, and they present it to them, like the younger, more attractive women, quote unquote, as a way of living in better conditions outside of the camp, which again is tempting for quite a few of them, including Juliana Margulies, like you mentioned. I love how Glenn's sort of counter argument to her and her being tempted by that is like, but like I'll lose an alto, like, but what about the orchestra? Which is like, I don't know if that's the best argument per se.
Oh man, yeah, that's like her only bargaining chip at that point, because she really has nothing else to offer. Like quite literally.
Right. But it's just kind of fun watching that back and forth too. Like there's even another scene where Cate is like sassing back to her about how the music that they're singing is rather tuneless on the whole, and Glenn just replies back, "You don't know what you're talking about."
Oh, I know. I love that moment too. It's so funny.
Yes. Again, Lydia Tarr just stays in my mind in certain moments like that. But
totally.
Yeah, to the point of like her Glenn being attacked at one point, that is another interesting scene for me in terms of her performance, where one of the guards attacks Glenn's character, and Glenn immediately fights back by like pushing him into the mud, sort of by accident, but maybe not. And just even her surprise at her own action and realizing what she's done is, for me, quite striking. It's like she went into that fight or flight response, and her instant response was to fight before she could truly like think of what would happen to her after that. And so, of course, that's after the fact that they put her in this makeshift jail of sorts, and they shave her head to like a more shorter haircut, I guess, and tells one of the guards that like the guard who attacked her was drunk and that he smelled of sake, which just enrages that guard, and he smacks her. A very bleak scene, but like you can definitely see, like you said, the commitment to the character here. I wish that there was a stronger through line to make me invest a little further in it ultimately.
Yeah, I would agree. And then like I think from that scene also kind of adds like emotional heft to what I would say I think is like probably Glenn's strongest scene in the movie, is when she gets isolated from the other women at one point when they're working in the field. And then it's just like Glenn kind of being like forced to go deep into the forest by herself with that one particular like general soldier person, and she is so scared and she's so tense, and she's kind of sitting near the tree, and she sits down, she's kind of backing away, and then they both sit, and then the general starts to sing because he saw them perform earlier. And it's, I think like that's probably like if you were to like really watch this movie, that's probably like the most emotionally compelling moment. And it's impressive too, because it's just like all reaction to the soldier singing, because you could see like this emotional conflict of someone who is like understandably very scared, and the movie has done a good job with establishing they should be scared and like what could happen, but at the same time you see this woman who is also like can't help but be like emotionally moved by this man that can sing. And it's like this moment where the movie humanizes both of them. So
exactly.
Yeah. That's a
I
good
love
scene.
That scene.
If you want to check it out.
Yes, that one scene.
Check out that one scene.
Yeah, because to your point, like there is some tension there in that moment of being like, is he gonna kill me?
Right.
But then instructing her to just sit down, and he sits down next to her, and the minute he opens his mouth and starts singing, it's like, wow, okay, this is kind of something unexpected, perhaps, that the movie doesn't really have those moments very often. It definitely speaks to the power of music across cultures, not to be corny about it, but like that is one of the themes here. And him just singing this little melody and then asking her, "You like?" And she just kind of nods. Yeah. And that's a scene where I felt like the understated quality here really was more effective for me. And it could have been very sentimental watching this moment of connection between these cultures, but I think it's surprisingly underplayed compared to a lot of the other scenes here. So yes, if you want to check out any scene here, watch that scene.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think like it's one of those rare moments too. I don't think there's like an imposing score that plays underneath. Like it really just like lets that scene play out for what it is. And like the only music that you get is from the general soldier like singing. See, if we just let actors and actresses act and do their job, hello. Look at that. The movie improves. Exactly. That's the takeaway.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it just kind of gets more brutal from there for these women. Like they're forced to move at one point as the Japanese are fearing these Allied forces coming in, and just really tough watching these women kind of waste away. Like one of the older women kind of accepting that she's about to die and saying goodbye to her daughter, And
what's so weird too? It's like all of that happens so fast. Like, because I'm like checking the time. Like, when is this movie going to be over? And like once they like move locations, it's like suddenly they all start just kind of like dropping like flies. And then you can tell the movie's like, rush, hurry, we're almost done. We only have so much time left. And it's like strange too,
Right.
because like a scene or two before, they all kind of look like fine.
Yeah.
And then a scene or two later, they're like all like very like gray and weathered. And you're like, oh my goodness, how much time has passed? Like another year? Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows, truly. That's the thing. Like, that is one of the biggest flaws of this movie is the concept of time. Again, it could be a few months, it could be 3 years, and it's hard to even tell beyond just, like you said, that clunky expositional dialogue occasionally coming in and being like, oh, it's been another year? Okay.
Yeah, it's so awkward. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but like I think the hopelessness by the end is effective in telling this story, but there are elements of it that do kind of drag for me. And to your point, like you're kind of waiting for it to end and you're waiting for the war to be over ultimately. Like Glenn does get another moving scene where the Pauline Collins character is dying, and so she recites the 23rd Psalm to her, and just her kind of focus as she's looking at her friend with such compassion and love. I think that is quite moving. Because like that's the relationship I think is kind of the core, is that Glenn and Pauline Collins relationship at the center. And so that's a nice, quiet, beautiful little moment of grace. I think that I prefer those quieter moments where the film kind of calms down and lets the actors act, like you said.
Yeah, and their like friendship is like the big emotional thrust of, hey, we should start a vocal orchestra. So it's nice that they kind of like give that relationship its like its moment to like kind of, you know, say goodbye. I'm going to let you go because you're like, you know, you're dying. But this relationship was like very meaningful, and it, you know, it gave so much good in this like terrible time that we're all having. So.
Right. Ultimately, shortly after that, the men announced to them that the war is over, and that's essentially it. We don't really get anything after that. It's just everyone embracing and being very excited and happy. And
we learned that Frances McDormand is a doctor of philosophy.
Yeah.
Plot twist.
Which I don't really know why she like kept that from them until the war was over. Like, I don't really know why are we doing a big reveal at the end now that we're finally out of this experience of being like, I wasn't actually a doctor.
Like, I know the reveal is so smug too.
Yeah, right. Did that help anyone that knowing that she was actually a doctor of philosophy? Like, it's just the rhythms of the film, I think, by the end is just like, I think you expect maybe a greater catharsis than what we actually get. Like, by the end, I'm like very relieved that we've finally gotten to this point. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's this big rousing moment of relief that the film is kind of wanting us to feel, per se. Like, it's just kind of like, oh, the war's over, we can move on with our lives, and that's it.
Yeah, it's very like, let me wipe my hands off, and now I can try and, you know, resume my everyday life. And it's kind of like some women just like stumbling away, walking away from the camp slowly. Like, it just kind of ends, and then that's it. And you're like, oh, like just as like the women were like, oh, when the war was over, like that's us when the movie ends.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Which, like, I see so much potential in this story to be very moving and effective. Like, there's one of the title cards at the end says, like, you know, lifelong friendships endured among the survivors of the camp, many of whom are still alive today. Like, I don't know if it would have served the movie to kind of have them older at one point and sort of just like having those kind of friendships or whatever, but I just feel like there needed to be a stronger narrative construct here to really emphasize resilience and survival in a way that would have made it more moving for the audience, I guess. So
yeah, because it just, I don't know. It's like you get that this is like a story of like resilience, but that's just like such a vague emotion and idea that you're trying to portray. There needed to be like more specificity in telling that story, especially from the perspective of these women in that, in that area during this time. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like interesting, like, a World War II movie really focused on the women,
Yeah. Which
and you
we
don't
don't
like
get.
you don't really get that often. And
Hmm.
like the men are, just the Japanese soldiers. You're supposed to be, the movie wants you to be invested in these women, but at the same time you don't really even feel like the movie itself is that invested, because it feels so like passive the way that they like wrote these characters. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm completely in agreement with you there. And I also agree with this quote from Roger Ebert in his review. He ended his review by saying, "The movie is an anecdote, not a story," which is
Yeah.
kind of brutal, but like, I kind of agree. Like,
Uh-huh.
this is such a fascinating story in its way. And if you were to hear this story, you'd be like, wow, that could make for an interesting movie.
Hmm.
It's just, they couldn't really find like a proper focus, I think, to tell the story through, I guess. So that's what makes it be like, what could have
Yeah.
been. But just to end on perhaps a slightly more positive note, you did mention that you have a certain kind of fondness for this movie at the same time, despite some of those flaws. Did you want to just talk about any reason why you still have that fondness, or is it just sentimental value for you? That's just like, this is how you started this journey with your
I think
actress
it's
obsession.
I think it's just that, because I mean, like, for me, like, even like we were like really hard on this movie, and I honestly felt
Yeah.
like we're like really struggling to find points here to talk
Yeah.
about.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that, and saying like, oh, it's like really generic, it's still like watchable. And I think watching this movie like kind of taught me in this like journey of wanting to like dive deeper into these actresses' careers, is that like, for as storied and as like critically acclaimed as like actresses like Glenn, obviously, and like Cate and Frances McDormand, like not every movie they're gonna do, despite like the pedigree, is gonna be great. Like, even if all like it may look good on paper, it's not gonna be great. And like that's fine. And like the fact that it's so meh, even though it's like difficult to break down the movie, it kind of like makes it this like weird, like, I don't know, this like weird little like, I don't want to say
Time
jewel, 'cause it's not
capsule.
a jewel, but like, yeah, it's like a weird time capsule of like, well, that happened. And that's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of like what it means to like have a career as an actress in this industry. Like, realistically, you're not going to have, like, not every movie is going to be a banger. And not every performance you give is going to be like notable or like memorable. You have to have like some of these like forgettable duds. But
Mm-hmm.
because they're forgettable duds, you're kind of like, that's interesting. Remember that like random movie that Glenn and Cate and Frances and all these actresses at this time were in? You've never heard of it, but it's there, And I feel like
Yeah.
maybe it's only like that kind of thing is only interesting for like people like us that are interested in like actresses. But that's the reality of this
Yeah.
career. So
That's
I
true.
think that's why like
Yeah.
there's that strange fondness I have for this
Yeah.
movie.
I
I
love
hope
that.
to never really watch it again, at least in, the near future. But
Yeah, you've watched it twice now,
I've watched
which
it
is
twice now.
probably, not many people could say that.
I know I can log it twice. I've logged it twice on Letterbox. I'd like to see who else has seen like logged it twice. I don't know, but
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah. But of course, like, this was a movie that did also, like, even saw positive reviews of it, found it quite meaningful, and that story of resilience did impact them. So, I'm happy that people had that experience from it too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, even though it didn't really work for us as much, I can certainly see the little gems within the
Hmm.
rough.
Yeah. It has its moments, and perhaps like it
Yeah.
played for us, like mediocre as it is, perhaps it like played slightly better for like audiences of a certain age during that time
Yeah.
that were kind of like
Right.
used to these kinds of movies,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's an old fashioned kind of quality to it that I think was nice for a
right.
certain generation too. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
yeah.
let's get to the release of Paradise Road. So it opened on April 11th, 1997. It debuted in 9 theaters, and the widest it was released in America was at 350 theaters in its third week, which is not all that much. But yeah, it was not a hit by any measurable scale. It completely bombed, unfortunately. The highest it got at the box office was that third week, where it ranked 17th.
Oh, wow. Yikes. That's rough.
Yeah. Granted, like I said, the theaters were pretty limited compared to other releases, so it didn't really have much of a chance to gross all that much, to be honest. But
true.
Just to give us a fun time capsule of 1997 in April, I can list some of the movies that did better than Paradise Road at the box office that weekend. So we had Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag, Selena, always great, The English Patient, still carrying strong from 96, Jungle to Jungle, McHale's Navy, That Old Feeling, Chasing Amy, The Devil's Own, Scream, Gross Point Blank, Murder at 1600, The Saint, Liar Liar, Anaconda, and the 2 new releases that weekend, Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion and Volcano. Yes. So
yeah, sorry ladies, I would not be rushing to watch Paradise Road at this time.
Yeah, and I think even like the prestige offerings would be like The English Patient carrying over from 96. That would attract more of an audience, sadly. But yeah, not great. The reviews were also pretty mixed. A lot of reviews calling it dull and lifeless and sentimental and not having like a strong through line. Like we talked about a lot of the issues that a lot of reviewers had at that time too. One of the only positive things it got during that award season was from the Chicago Film Critics Association, which nominated Cate Blanchett for Most Promising Actress.
Wow, they knew.
They were like, this lady has potential. And here we are. And it got a few nominations from the Film Critics Circle of Australia, but that was about it. Also, Frances McDormand got 2 nominations from the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, whatever that is. Basically the equivalent of the Razzies for something, for Worst Supporting Actress and Most Annoying Fake Accent. So
wow, rough. Were the Razzies like a thing yet at this time or not yet?
They were.
Oh, they were. Oh, okay.
I have to look up these Stinkers Bad.
Yeah, I've never...
Just to see what these are all about.
Yeah, I've never heard of Stinkers Bad. I like how they're very upfront with what they are. Yeah. Stinkers Bad.
Right. Yeah. They were a Los Angeles-based group of film buffs and film critics devoted to honoring the worst films of the year.
Oh, I feel like they were trying to like be an offshoot Razzie, you know?
Yeah.
But then it never quite...
they wanted the Razzies nachos for sure.
Yeah, totally.
They ended in 2006. I don't know why, but they did. So,
well,
there you go.
Stinkers Bad, I guess. Meta.
Stinkers Bad. Right, exactly. So any thoughts on why Paradise Road didn't really connect with audiences or critics even? Besides what we already said, I guess.
Yeah, it's just like really, it's not, there's nothing like unique about it. It's very forgettable. It's a very forgettable movie. There's nothing distinct. I mean, like, again, like I really think your main desire to even want to check out this movie would be the actresses. But again, like you said, there's like so many other great movies out at this time. It doesn't really, that doesn't really help them, you know? So I could see it getting lost in the sea.
Yeah. Just like Cate Blanchett and Jennifer Ehle and Glenn Close got lost at sea.
literally, yes.
Yeah, and it's just April is not a good time for this kind of movie. Like, it really should have been a fall release if they really wanted to capitalize on it, to be honest. That sort of
I wonder
season.
if them like choosing to release it in April was like also them like knowing what they had and just being like, well, just release it here. Just release it here. Just, you know, let it be over. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It could have been
Yeah.
any decisions made there. But yeah, I just think quality wise, like the reviews weren't there. This was a time where reviews did matter a little bit more than they do now.
Hmm.
So that wasn't great. And yeah, I just don't think there was a strong enough hook necessarily to really get audiences to go see this, unfortunately.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Maybe like Frances McDormand having just like won the Oscar might have been.
True.
I'm not quite sure if she was that like a large part of like the promotion of this movie. Perhaps, maybe, but even then, like then you watch the movie and she's like not really in it that much.
Yeah. She's second
So
billed. Her name is also on the poster, so I do
right,
think that was part of it. But
yeah,
once audiences saw it, they were probably like, "Oh, well, this is not really like what we like to see from Frances McDormand." But
yeah.
um,
Maybe that's also
yeah,
the thing too. Is like this, like at least like specifically thinking about like Glenn and Francis. Like these are not. This is not why
yeah,
we come to the theater to watch Glenn Close and Frances McDormand. Is like whatever what they're doing in this movie.
yeah. We come to
Oh.
the theater to see her in 101 Dalmatians, as people did
Exactly.
a few months
Exactly.
before this. So
Yes.
yeah. So there you have it. But
Yeah.
let's get to our last segment where we're going to rate Glenn's performance on a very specific scale. I'm very curious for your rating on this one.
Oh my
Thinking about
gosh.
her performance and where this sits in her career, would you say that her performance as Adrian is that she is ready for her close-up, one of her best performances, low Glenergy, not one of your faves, not an essential watch, or close but no cigar, somewhere in the middle?
Oh, I feel like so bad for saying this. I don't know if other people have ranked a movie yet in this tier, but I just like honestly feel like this is low Glenergy, but also at the same time like Glenn innocent because
Mhm.
this is not her fault.
Glennicent, you could say.
Yeah, she's
Glennicent.
Glennicent. She's Glennicent. Because yeah, like this is just like not an essential movie at all for anyone in this cast. But it's like memorable if you're like a deep dive person like us, like,
Right.
remember that, that movie. And it's not, yeah, it's just not one of her essentials, in especially in like a career in the context of Glenn, in a career that's like so vast and there's so many performances. Like why this one? So
Yep.
that's why it's low Glenergy. I'm sorry, Glenn.
It's okay.
Glennicent.
Glennicent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going to be the one being apologetic here because I also would put this in low Glenergy. I'm so sorry to
Oh,
say.
okay,
And
okay.
yeah, it's not her fault. Like you said, Glennicent. It's just not a compelling character. And the film, I think, lets her down more often than not. Like, this could have been such a great, rousing performance from her and physical and raw. Like, she gets to do a lot of things, but
Mhm.
it pulls its punches in terms of treating this character with the through line that she probably deserves. Like if I was being
Right.
generous, maybe I would say it would be on the low close but no cigar, just because I don't think it's her fault that it's in this category, but like
Yeah.
just over the meter of close but no cigar, just
Right.
like barely inched above it, not anywhere close to ready for her close up by any means.
Oh
But
no, no, no. No.
any other thoughts, Steffi, as we close this out?
No. I mean like for if those This Had Oscar Buzz boys are listening to this podcast, this should be a potential episode. Because I think that would
Yeah.
be fun. And I feel like this is like if you mention this movie, this is like one of those like you can separate like it'll like you'll find your people if they even know this movie. So
That is so true.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start using that as like the Paradise Road meter. Like if you've heard
Yeah.
of this movie even, then you're a
Yeah.
real one.
You're a real one for sure of any of these ladies. So yeah.
You're my people. Yes.
Yeah.
But Steffi, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, I was a little worried doing an episode about this movie because I was
Mhm.
just like, oh my gosh. I was like, I was like looking at the time too. I was like, man, we might only reach like 30-ish minutes here. Who knows? But I think you did a really good job trying to cover this movie in like in a way that like gave the movie its like time and due.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we had a good discussion on this. Yes.
Yeah, this was
To be
for the
fair, I
this is
did-
for the deep cuts. This is for the
Yes.
Paradise Road stance.
Right.
I guess,
I was
if they're
going to
out
say
there.
I fully exhausted all of my notes on this movie. I have nothing else to say.
Because there is nothing else to say.
Right. Yeah. Did a pretty good job, I would say.
Yeah.
But where could people find more of you on the internet?
Oh, I'm at INN_MHO on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Yeah. Go follow Steffi.
Follow for the. Are you? Wait, I haven't looked at your Letterboxd in a minute. But are you like ranking these Glenn performances
Yes, I am.
on Letterboxd?
Actually.
Oh my god. Okay, I need to look to see where this landed on your ranking of Glenn.
I actually think I forgot to put it in.
Oh. that in and of itself is telling.
Which I suppose tracks, but I will do that right after this. But that's a very good plug for that particular list because I'm having fun sort of curating that.
Great.
Yeah. But thank you all so much for listening. You could find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter and Instagram, just Kevin Jacobsen on Blue Sky. You can also listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, and the runner-up is for coverage of every single Best Actress race, including 2007, which I had Steffi on for that. We also talked about another Cate Blanchett movie there, Elizabeth the Golden Age, that is not particularly as well remembered, perhaps, or looked back on as fondly as others in her filmography, but we had fun nonetheless breaking that one down. And the runner-up is on all platforms, and to keep up with the world according to Glenn on social, follow The Glenn Pod, and rate, review, and follow the podcast on all platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.